What's poppin', everyone? It's Scout Eveleth, your local realtor, and today we're diving into a hot topic that's got everyone talking, and it's the truth about property taxes in the state of Florida and how that could dramatically affect us here in the villages. So in today's video, we'll be covering a shocking proposal to eliminate property taxes statewide, the potential impacts this could have on homeowners, local services, and the real estate market as a whole, and what this means for you if you're thinking about buying or selling. So if you're thinking about buying, selling, or just wanting to stay up to date on everything that's happening here in the Villages, Florida, make sure you smash the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out. Also, check out my new website, scoutthevillages.com, for the best way to find a home here in the Villages. It's linked at the top of the video description down below. With that said, thank you so much, and let's get right into it. Now imagine a Florida where property taxes are a thing of the past. This almost sounds too good to be true, right? Well, buckle up, because we're about to dive into one of the most controversial proposals in recent Florida history. Now, the governor, Ron DeSantis, has thrown his weight behind an idea that's sending shockwaves all throughout the Sunshine State, and this is the complete elimination of property taxes. Now, this isn't just a minor tweak to the tax code we're talking about. This would be fundamentally reshaping how Florida funds its government and local services. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's set the stage here. Florida, like most states, relies heavily on property taxes to fund everything from schools to firefighters. These taxes have been a cornerstone of local government funding for generations. They're based on the assessed value of real estate and are paid annually by property owners. The revenue generated from these taxes goes directly to local governments and school districts, providing a stable and predictable source of funding for essential services. This system has been in place for so long that many people take it for granted, assuming it's just part of the cost of owning property. So when eliminating property taxes entirely was suggested, it's not just a policy shift we're talking about here, it's a potential revolution in how we think about property ownership and government funding. This proposal has ignited passionate debates in town halls, on social media, and around dinner tables all throughout Florida. Some see this as a bold step towards true property ownership, arguing that the current system essentially means you never truly own your property outright. They contend that paying an annual tax just to keep your home is more like renting from the government than true ownership. Now, on the other hand, critics of the proposal argue that property taxes are a fair and necessary way to fund local services that benefit all residents. They point out that homeowners directly benefit from things like good schools, well-maintained roads, and responsive emergency services, all of which are funded by property taxes. These critics worry that eliminating this crucial revenue stream could lead to drastic cuts in public service or force the state to implement other, potentially more burdensome forms of taxation. So, as we delve deeper into this topic, we'll explore the intricacies of the proposal, its potential benefits and drawbacks, and the challenges it faces and the alternatives being considered. We'll also look at what experts and ordinary Floridians are saying about this controversial idea. So, by the end of this discussion, you'll have a comprehensive understanding of what's at stake and why this debate is so important for the future of Florida. Now, let's dig into the meat of this proposal. Currently, Florida homeowners pay property taxes based on the assessed value of their homes or property. These taxes fund a significant portion of local government services as well as school districts. Now, the idea behind property taxes is that homeowners should contribute to the community services that benefit them and help maintain the property values. But the governor is challenging this long-standing system with the question, is it your property or not? The argument was presented like this. If you have to pay the government every year just to keep your home, do you really own it? Now, from this perspective, property taxes are essentially a form of rent that homeowners pay to the government. By eliminating these taxes, DeSantis argues that Floridians would achieve true property ownership. No more annual bills just for the privilege of living in the home that you've already bought and paid for. This perspective resonates with many who feel that they never truly own their property as long as they have to keep paying the government year after year. To understand the significance of this proposal, it's important to grasp how deeply ingrained property taxes are in Florida's fiscal structure. In the current system, local governments assess the value of all properties in their jurisdiction annually. This assessed value is then used to calculate the property tax owed based on a local millage rate that is set by local authorities. The revenue from these taxes goes directly to fund local services, including schools, police, fire departments, road maintenance, parks, and recreation, as well as many other essential community services. The new proposal would upend this entire system. Instead of relying on property taxes, local governments and school districts would need to find alternative sources of funding. This is where the proposal gets complex and controversial. While the idea of eliminating property taxes might sound appealing on the surface, it raises a host of questions about how Florida would make up for the lost revenue and ensure the continued provision of essential services throughout the community. But here's where it gets even more complicated. This isn't something that can be done with a simple law or executive order. We're talking about a fundamental change to Florida's constitution. To make this happen, proponents would need to get a constitutional amendment on the ballot and then secure a 60% voter approval. Now that's a high bar, and it's designed to ensure that major changes like this have broad public support. The process of amending Florida's constitution is intentionally made difficult. First, the proposed amendment would need to be drafted and approved by the state legislature or gathered through a citizen initiative process, which would require collecting hundreds of thousands of signatures from registered voters. Once on the ballot, it would face intense scrutiny and debate across the board. Voters would then need to be educated on the implications of the change, including potential benefits and drawbacks. The 60% approval threshold is particularly significant. It means that not only would a majority of voters need to support the change, but a substantial supermajority would need to be convinced. This high bar is designed to prevent the Constitution from being changed too easily and to ensure that any changes have broad support across the entire state. The process would likely involve intense campaigning, public debates, and a significant amount of voter education. After all, this isn't a simple yes or no question. It's a proposal that would totally reshape Florida's fiscal landscape. Voters would need to understand not just the potential benefits, but also the trade-offs and risk involved. They would need to understand complex questions about how public services would be funded in the absence of property taxes, and what other forms of taxation might increase to make up for the shortfall of revenue. Even still, if the amendment were to pass, implementing such a sweeping change would be a monumental task. It would require a complete overhaul of Florida's tax system, affecting everything from local government budgets to school funding formulas. The transition period would likely be complex and potentially disruptive, requiring very careful planning and execution. Now, it's a tall order, but if successful, it would represent one of the most significant changes to Florida's tax system in the state's entire history. The implications would be far-reaching, affecting not just homeowners, but renters, businesses, local governments, and ultimately every resident of the state in one way or another. Now, as we continue to explore this proposal, keep in mind the magnitude of the change being suggested and the complex process required to make this a reality. So, let's talk about the potential upsides of this proposal, because it's not hard to see why it's gaining traction among many Floridians. First and foremost, eliminating property taxes could provide substantial financial relief for many homeowners. We're not talking about a few dollars here and there. For many people, property taxes represent thousands of dollars each year. In some higher value areas of Florida, annual property tax bills can run into the tens of thousands of dollars. Imagine what you could do with that extra money in your pocket. For some, it could mean finally being able to afford home improvements or repairs. And for others, it might be the difference between struggling to make ends meet and having a comfortable financial cushion. To put this into perspective, let's consider a concrete example. Suppose you own a home valued at $300,000 in Florida with an average property tax rate of about 1%. Your annual property tax bill would be around $3,000 each year. Over a 30-year period, which is the typical length of a mortgage, you'd pay $90,000 in property taxes. Assuming the rate and your home's value remained constant, which they likely wouldn't because they would probably increase over time. Eliminating this tax would essentially be like giving this homeowner a $90,000 bonus over the entire life of their mortgage. For many people, this could be life-changing money. This relief could be particularly significant for retirees living on fixed income. Florida has long been a popular retirement destination, but rising property taxes have put a strain on many seniors' budgets. By eliminating this annual expense, the proposal could make it easier for older Floridians to age in place and enjoy their golden years without the stress of ever-increasing property tax bills. For a retiree on fixed income, the elimination of a $3,000, $5,000, or even $10,000 annual expense could mean the difference between comfortable living and financial stress. But the potential benefits don't stop at individual homeowners. This proposal could have far-reaching effects on Florida's economy and population growth. Already known for its lack of state income tax, Florida could become an even more attractive destination for both individuals and businesses if it also eliminated its property taxes. Imagine the marketing potential. Move to Florida, no income tax, and no property tax. It's the kind of pitch that could accelerate the state's already robust population growth and potentially attract more businesses, particularly from higher tax states. This influx of new residents and businesses could stimulate Florida's economy in numerous ways. Now, more people means more consumers, which could boost retail sales, restaurant businesses, and many other service-based industries. New businesses could create jobs and diversify the state's economy overall. The real estate market could also see a significant boost as well, with the elimination of property taxes potentially driving up demand for homes and commercial properties as well. This increased demand could lead to more construction, creating jobs in the building trades as well as related industries. Furthermore, this proposal could make homeownership more attainable for many Floridians who are currently priced out of the market. Without the added burden of annual property taxes, more people might be able to qualify for mortgages and afford to buy homes. This could lead to increased homeownership rates, which is often associated with greater community stability and individual wealth creation. For many people, homeownership is a key path to building generational wealth, and removing the ongoing cost of property taxes could make this path even more accessible. The elimination of property taxes could also have a significant impact on the rental market. Landlords no longer paying property taxes might be able to offer lower, more competitive rental rates, making housing more affordable for renters as well. This could help address affordability issues in many Florida cities, where rising rents have continued to become more of a major concern. And from a broader economic perspective, the elimination of property taxes could lead to more efficient use of land and property. Currently, property taxes can sometimes discourage development or improvements of property, as owners know their tax bills will significantly increase if they enhance the property's value. Removing this disincentive could lead to more investment in property improvements and development, potentially revitalizing some areas and spurring economic growth. Additionally, the simplification of the tax system by removing property taxes could make Florida even more attractive for businesses. Companies looking to relocate or expand often consider the complexity of local tax systems in their decision-making process. If Florida had no income tax and no property tax, this would present a very straightforward and appealing tax environment for many businesses. It's also worth considering the potential psychological impact on eliminating property taxes. Homeowners might feel a greater sense of true ownership and connection to their properties if they no longer have to pay an annual tax just to keep them. This could also lead to greater investment in homes and communities as people feel more secure in their homeownership. Lastly, from a governmental perspective, eliminating property taxes could force a reevaluation of spending priorities and potentially lead to more efficient use of public funds. Local governments no longer able to rely on the relatively stable income from property taxes might be incentivized to find more innovative and cost-effective ways to provide public services. Now, of course, all of these potential benefits come with significant caveats and potential drawbacks, which we'll explore in the next section. But it's clear that the idea of eliminating property taxes in Florida is not just a pipe dream, it's a proposal with potentially far-reaching and transformative effects on the state's economy, population, and way of life. While the potential benefits of eliminating property taxes are enticing, we can't ignore the significant challenges and concerns that this proposal raises. Let's start with the elephant in the room, the massive revenue shortfall that this would create. Now, we're not talking about a small budget gap here. Property taxes currently bring in around $55 billion annually in the state of Florida. And that's billion with a B. This money funds crucial services that Floridians rely on every day, from schools to emergency services, from road maintenance to parks and local libraries. To truly grasp the magnitude of this issue, let's break down where this money goes and what it funds. In most Florida counties, the largest portion of property tax revenue, often around 50% or more, goes to local schools. This money pays for teacher salaries, school buildings, and maintenance, as well as educational materials and programs. The next largest chunk typically goes to county governments, which is funding services like local law enforcement, fire departments, emergency medical services, road maintenance, and other public health services. Cities also rely heavily on property taxes to fund their operations, including local police forces, parks, recreation departments, and various other municipal services. To put this into perspective, imagine your local fire department suddenly loses a major chunk of its funding, or your child's or grandchild's school having to cut teachers as well as other educational programs. These aren't just hypothetical scenarios, they are real concerns that local officials are actively addressing as they evaluate this proposal, highlighting the vital role that property taxes play in funding these essential services. Without property tax revenue, how would it pay for police officers or firefighters? How would we maintain roads and parks? And how would it fund public services and other community centers? These are not luxury items, they're basic services that many residents expect and rely on. The elimination of property taxes would force a complete reimagining of how these services are funded and delivered. But the challenges don't stop at the local level. This proposal would totally change the relationship between state and local governments here in Florida. Currently, local governments have a degree of financial autonomy thanks to their ability to levy property taxes. This allows them to respond to local needs and priorities. If property taxes are eliminated, local governments would likely become more dependent on the state for funding. This could lead to a significant shift in power dynamics, potentially reducing local control over important decisions about public services and community development. Imagine a scenario where every local budget decision needs to be approved at the state level. This could lead to a one-size-fits-all approach that doesn't account for the diverse needs of Florida's various communities. Smaller towns might have different priorities and needs compared to larger urban developments, but without the ability to set their own property tax rates, they might lose the flexibility to address these unique local concerns. There's also the question of how to make up for this massive revenue shortfall. One idea that's been presented is to dramatically increase the state's sales tax rate. Some estimates suggest it might need to go to 12% or even higher. To put that into context, Florida's current sales tax rate is 6%, with some localities adding their own taxes on top of that. Doubling or tripling the sales tax rate here in Florida would give it the highest sales tax rate in the nation by far. And let's consider what this might mean in practice. If you're buying a $500 television under the current system, you'd pay about $30 in state sales tax. However, under a 12% tax rate, that same television would come with a $60 tax bill. Again, literally double or more. Now extend that to every purchase you make, including groceries, clothes, home goods, and other services. The impact on household budgets could be substantial, potentially offsetting any savings from the property tax elimination, especially for lower and middle income families who spend a larger portion of their income on consumable goods. This potential solution brings its own set of problems. Sales taxes are generally considered regressive, meaning they hit lower income individuals harder as a proportion of their overall income. A dramatic increase in sales tax could make everyday purchases significantly more expensive, potentially offsetting any savings from property tax elimination for many families. It could also impact Florida's tourism industry, as visitors might be deterred by the sky high taxes on their new purchases. Florida's economy relies heavily on tourism, and a significant increase in sales tax could make the state less competitive compared to other vacation destinations. Moreover, relying heavily on sales tax for government revenue can create budget instability. Sales tax revenue tends to fluctuate more with economic conditions than property tax revenue. During economic downturns, consumer spending often decreases, which would lead to lower sales tax revenue precisely when government services are often most needed. This could make it harder for state and local governments to plan and budget effectively, potentially leading to cuts in services during economic downturns. Another concern is the impact on the overall housing market. While eliminating property taxes might make home ownership more attractive in some ways, it could also lead to a spike in home prices. If the cost of owning a home decreases due to the elimination of property taxes, demand would likely increase, driving up prices. This could potentially offset any affordability gains, especially for first-time homebuyers. Lastly, we need to consider the potential for unintended consequences. For example, without property taxes, there might be less incentive for property owners to develop or improve their land, as they wouldn't face higher tax bills doing so. This could lead to less efficient use of land and potentially slower economic development in some ways. While the idea of eliminating property taxes might sound appealing on the surface, it comes with a host of complex challenges and potential negative consequences. Any serious consideration of this proposal would need to grapple with these issues and develop comprehensive solutions to ensure that essential services continue to be funded. But stay tuned for updates as this potential game-changing proposal continues to evolve. We'll be closely keeping an eye on this plan to eliminate property taxes and its potential impact on the villages in Florida as a whole. So there you have it, the latest on property taxes in the villages and the potential for a major shakeup in Florida's tax system. So what do you think about the proposal to eliminate property taxes here in Florida? Do you think it would benefit residents of the villages, or are you concerned about the potential drawbacks? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below. And with that said, I hope you found this video helpful or enjoyable. If you did, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out. Thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and until next time.